able to used in dairy products and companies that are packaging beverages. For example, if I've been buying milk, you must have seen that some milk is called long life. It's long life because of its packaging. The aseptic packaging enables it to have a shelf life of up to 90 days. So, so when you're applying such kind of packaging, you can have your milk stored under normal conditions, not refrigerated, for up to 90 days. So in that case, you're able to preserve your milk for a long time and you don't have cases where milk is getting spoiled. In cases of people who are trading in grains, who are storing grains at home, they're also using airtight grain bags. This type of technology, you find that it's an ordinary bag, but with a lining of polyethylene inside. So the polyethylene provides conditions that does not allow pests, maybe weevils, to survive in the grains. So in such case, you can store your grain for a good period of time and it doesn't go bad. So in areas where such airtight bags are used, you find that grain spoilage is limited. And there are variety sizes. So the application is wide from commercial scale to domestic. We have also seen traders preferring certain variety of crops, especially tomatoes. There are tomatoes which are a bit long, and they've proven to be having extended lifespan, shelf life. They can stay on stores for a good period of time. So farmers have adopted that kind of technology to minimize on food spoilage on the stores. We are seeing also innovators in Kampala coming up with solutions to support conditioned storage. Conditioned storage has been applied like mostly at a commercial scale and industrial scales. But there is a company called Fruit Cycle. It came up with an innovation. It designed a motorized tricycle with a refrigerator. And this technology was able to reduce losses or minimize food waste from 50% to 10. So what does this do? What are its advantages? It can go up to 100 kilometers. It's auto, you can pedal, but when you're pedaling, that dynamic motion can generate electricity. So if you're tired, you switch to electricity and you're able to go for a longer distance distributing food. But that same tricycle has a solar-powered cooling system to condition your product so that they are not affected by temperature. So by doing so, you can be able to distribute or market your product for a period of a week without them getting spoiled. So what we have been looking at, those are some of the technologies that we are able to identify at market level. What is actually happening in Uganda? So in our strategies, we can either decide to promote existing technology so that there is wide application of such technologies to address food waste. But however, this is not all. We have some technologies that are not here, but they are on market somewhere else, or they have successfully been piloted and they have demonstrated that they can address the problem of food waste. Yesterday, as we were discussing, we found a problem of unplanned shopping. But these days, the smartphones have digital applications that can support us plan our shoppings and plan our meals. I think each of us have smartphones. You can try and search for shopping and meal plans applications that would enable you to plan for your meals. They don't stop at that. For example, if you have leftover vegetables I mean, like you have cut a cabbage, you have cut a tomato. They can guide you on how you can combine those leftovers to come up with a with a dish. Informal sector, supermarkets, they have come up with monitoring technologies. These are smart sensors, they're smart cameras. So these cameras, they monitor freshness of products. So by monitoring the freshness of products, the supermarkets have information to support them take decisions which product should go first, depending on how fresh a given product is. There's also what we call Internet of Things, big data, artificial intelligence. Big franchise, big enterprises are collecting data on customers on how they are purchasing products. And by collecting that big data, they are able to predict consumer preference, consumer behaviors, and that data is used to inform them on what their customer prefer and what should be the target stock. So they don't stock anyhow. Their stock is informed by data. So the Internet of Things doesn't stop at that. The governments are also using big data to come up with evidence-based policies. If they are to tackle a given problem, they need to know how big the volume of waste is, what are the pathways of waste, and they come up with targeted particular interventions to address those problems. There's also use of database to allow exchange of information. So data is collected and can be used to inform different stakeholders. And it can help government to plan. So those are some of the digital technologies. Now we look at more technologies that have been developed to improve the shelf life of products. Because since we are dealing more in fresh products, we find it a problem that our products go bad very fast. Some of the new technologies, one of them is from Mitsubishi, where they've come up with a product that is used in packaging, and this product absorbs oxygen. And when there's no oxygen, there are very limited possibilities of support microorganisms to spoil the products. And other companies, such as Fresh Pepper, Blue Apple, they've also started manufacturing products that are put in refrigerators to absorb gases that accelerate ripening of products. Because if those gases are generated, the product are likely to ripen very fast. So there are some innovation that can reduce the rate of ripening of products. But also here in Uganda, Makerere University has successfully come up with an innovation to preserve cassava by using wax. Wax is produced from honeycombs, and you can store cassava by waxing it under high humidity, and you can be able to store it for a long period of time. We have more digital technologies that are used in redistribution of food. Yesterday, we came to know that in other countries, when food is not sold, it can be distributed to other countries. However, we found that there's a challenge in Uganda because we don't have standards and regulations for unsold food or leftovers. So hotels don't want to take the liability in case of something comes out of distributing food, unsold food. One of them is No Food to Waste. It's operating in India, where they go to rescue food from weddings, from parties. Of course, you always expect excess food on such events, and this food is redistributed to needy people. We also have 11th Hour. It's operating in Singapore. It also does a similar thing, like No Food to Waste does. Going to functions like an event like this one, when we leave their food, they collect it and distribute it to the needy. Too Good to Go. Too Good to Go, it's also operating in European countries. When food is near to go bad, for example, when the shelf life of tomato is 5 days. So on the third day, this app can inform customers that food which is about to go bad is available at a discount rate, and they are able to get that food. But we have looked at technologies that can minimize food waste generation. But what can we do in cases of inevitable food waste, like peelings, like eggshells? What can we do with that? There are also technologies that can enable us to address such problems. For example, waste to energy technologies. Yesterday, our colleague from Creek demonstrated how we could do that, but I'll just supplement on this. We are seeing a lot of innovations coming from slum, and they're often referred to as slum labs and fabrications, who are doing great innovations to convert inevitable food waste into energy sources like briquettes. A good example is La Chaco's cooperative, which uses organic waste to produce biomass briquettes as an alternative clean source of energy. But also biogas. And the good thing with biogas now that is biogas, there is a lot of study that has been done to biogas. Now it goes beyond just producing biogas, but to production of biomass, biomethane. And here, Uganda Cleaner Production Center and University of Surrey undertook a study to see the business case of biogas in Ghana and Uganda. The study revealed that biogas can be bottled just like LPG. And in this case, for Uganda, it makes more business case to package biogas. So it provides us an opportunity. Actually, I've seen the government more pushing for LPG. But since the study reveals that biogas can make more business case as compared to LPG and can also be packaged for portable distribution or for home use, I think we should look into it. For whoever needs to do further reading, he can look at that opportunities for clean cooking in Ghana and Uganda to look at the detailed economics. Biogas has also been widely used here in Uganda. A good example is Wendero Diaries. This one demonstrates the full economic potential of biogas. It's at industrial scale. You can imagine a biogas plant which is as huge as this room. And that's what they are using to power an industry, to generate all their thermal energies. They don't burn fossil fuels, they don't buy firewood, but that's what they use to power their thermal processes. Also in SCORE, Sugar Corporation of Uganda Limited, it's also using biogas to power its operation. So the opportunities with green technologies for reducing food waste is so huge. So it's us to decide how we can come up with strategies to ensure wide use and application of these proven green technologies, those that are proven here in Uganda and those that are proven elsewhere. So we see that green technologies, they provide us with so many opportunities, they can create jobs, but why is it difficult for us to uptake these technologies? So as we are discussing with some of these people in the markets, people fear to lose their income or to run out of business because they think they don't have the technical capacity to operate such technologies. A good example is that when we were at some of these markets, we are talking to the informal sector. Someone told us that when government promotes like cold chains, me as an informal person, I'm going to go out of business. Instead, this business will be operated by multinational companies that can afford to run those big cold chains that require a lot of money to invest in. Lack of experienced professionals. Engineers in conditioned storage and cooling, we still have limited capacity that would support us to come up with those technologies. Priorities for government. As we shall see in the government programs and plans and policies and strategies, government priority is more on post-harvest losses. Less attention has been given towards food waste at a consumer side. So there are less resources allocated to address challenges at a consumer level. Limited availability of infrastructure and facilities. People were emphasizing of the facilities in the market, but also even the size, including electricity. It does not stop at availability, but also the cost. In cases where it is available, it's not affordable. And I don't think something, if it's not affordable, you can claim that it's available. I think availability needs to be redefined. We say that we have enhanced access, but energy is access too, but people can't afford to use it to preserve or to protect our food. The financing mechanism. The financing mechanism which exists here only supports the informal sector. And yet, the food sector, the dominant player, are the informal people whose budget is averaging up to around 100,000 to 200,000. Now, we don't have suitable financing mechanism to support those people to invest in technologies that can prevent food waste. Culture and norms. People say, I can't eat frozen food. I need meat from the butcher. I need meat from the abattoir. I need fresh meat. So if we keep preference for fresh meat, that means we are not going to embrace technologies to condition and store food for a long time. Limited research and development. Given that this is not a government priority, even the priority area for research that the government allocates money for, you find that food waste is nowhere to be mentioned. Then the complexities of the technologies. Most of the technologies in the food waste sector, they are new and they are emerging. So its use is a bit complicated. Some of us, the baby boomers born before computers, tend to hesitate to use mobile applications. So it is still a complex, still requires sometimes to. So these are some of the challenges that are limiting the uptake. So in the afternoon, as we think of strategies, we should think of strategies that can enable us overcome these challenges so that we can up our game in use of green technologies for food waste reduction. So I've just talked about green technologies. Now I'm going to talk about the policies. We want to see what is the government direction in addressing food waste. The government of Uganda has put in place an enabling framework for food loss and waste reduction. This starts from the Constitution of Uganda. It compels the state to undertake steps to grow and store adequate food. When you go to the Vision 2040, it underscores the need to reduce food loss and improve food safety. Our National Development Plan, the new one, the third one, 2020-2021 to 2024-25, it provides for establishment of the National Food and Agriculture Statistics System so that we have enough data, we have enough information to come up with informed policies and strategies. It also supports establishment of food technology incubation So as they allocate the Science and Innovation Fund, there will be fund for us to innovate and to incubate startups to develop food waste reduction technologies. It also provides for establishment of a national store and relief food chain management systems. National Development Plan 3 also prioritizes, because the problem is that we don't have processed food, establishment of agro-industrialization with the aim of creating jobs and making households food safe. So that means what we cannot consume when it is fresh, there will be industries to process it. We also have the Agriculture Sector Strategic Plan 2015-2020. It provides for establishment of cottage industries. It looks at improved food handling, marketing, and distribution systems. Then developing capacity for quality assurance and food safety. Appropriate technologies and training of inspectors and regulators and policy makers in inspection systems and quality management systems. So all these interventions are aimed at improving food loss and food waste. The National Agriculture Extension Strategy, it also has provisions that promote food security. And we cannot promote food security without looking at food that we lose on a daily basis. We also have the National Food and Nutrition Policy 2003, which aims at ensuring that the country becomes food secure at all levels, and it also provides for monitoring of food and nutrition situation in the country. Uganda also is participating in the Global Food Security Strategy, and Uganda will have our country plan that has provisions or that has policies that support food waste prevention. The National Grain Trade Policy of 2015, it also has provisions that would support us to address the problem of food waste. The government has not stopped there, but it has also provided tax incentives. It has provided tax incentives in some technologies for us end users to use to reduce food waste. One of them is tax exempted to hotels, but these hotels have to be formal, not the informal hotels, on technologies including cookers, freezers, IT, softwares that could support in addressing food waste. It has also exempted tax on any packaging material, but this packaging material is for those food products that are for the export market. I hope this could be reviewed to include packaging materials for products in the domestic market as well. Cold rooms, those of big capacity, they are also duty free. You can import them without paying the duty. And also conditioned trucks. If you are dealing in distribution of goods that are perishables, I think you must have seen these trucks with a red number plate. You can also import those products without paying tax. So having looked at the existing technologies, did a policy review to assess what the government is doing, we came up with some of the recommendations or recommended strategies we can undertake to reduce food waste. Yes, we appreciate that there is some effort, but we need more further strategies to improve the situation. So these interventions were recommended and for particular stakeholders, for policymakers, including Minister of Trade, Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, local government authorities, Uganda National Bureau of Standards, Minister of Water and Environment. These are some of the potential recommendations that we could consider to implement to reduce food waste in Uganda. And I think this is what we shall be discussing in the afternoon. I don't have to read word by word for the interest of us having time to discuss, to review them during our group discussions, come up with more recommendations, make adjustments so that these interventions suit our conditions to address the problem we are facing. We also came up with recommendations for the financiers, commercial banks, development banks, and Minister of Finance, National Planning Authority. We came up with recommendations for researchers, universities, what they can do. This is what we shall be discussing in the after break. I don't have to read word by word. And then for civil society organizations and sector associations. Then we also come up with broad policy recommendations. Yeah, also, this is what we'll be discussing in the afternoon. And it takes me to the last slide, which I think should inform our discussions in the afternoon. From the discussions and from the discussions of the technologies, strategies, I think here we need to take this hierarchy. We shouldn't give priorities to technologies that treat food waste, but give priorities to technologies and strategies that reduce food waste. When we have exhausted strategies and technologies that reduce food waste, then we should look at strategies that food is there in excess. Can we feed the people? Can it be donated? Can it be shared? Then if we have exhausted those ones, we need to look at technologies that can keep food waste in a productive cycle, like what protein is doing. If we cannot use it to feed people, if it is too bad for people to eat, can it be fed to animals? Because once it is fed to animals, it has not gone to the landfill. Foods just keep circulating in the productive cycle. Then if we cannot feed it to animals, can we use it in industries? Can it be an input material in a given process? Can it be a source of energy to a particular industrial process? Then when we have exhausted those interventions and technologies, what interventions can we put it to compost it? If we cannot give it to industries to feed it to people, what measures and interventions can we come up with to compost it so that we use it in agriculture? Then when we have exhausted all of those, recovered energy, tried to feed it to people, we can now think of end of life. If we cannot do anything, how safe can we dispose of a particular type of food waste? So this should guide our discussions as we break up into different groups in the afternoon. Thank you very much. This is what I had to present. And I believe we shared with you the reports that have the interventions where I think most of our discussion should come from, or most of our questions should come from. And I will open the floor for questions as we go to break and prepare for breakout sessions. Thank you very much.
Most welcome. Do you have a second mic? Yes. Let's move the mic around.
Thank you, presenter. This is very insightful. And I appreciate that a lot is going on. And we are actually trying to adopt new technologies. My first comment is, what are we doing with our technical indigenous knowledge, especially with preserving food? We still have traditional people like Dr. Lutalo there who know how you can keep matoke cool and soft. Should we really only go for the digital and the new technologies and give away the traditional or the indigenous knowledge that we have on how to preserve food? That's one thing. And then the other one, Charles, you've not mentioned where you, the farms or the individuals you contacted. I saw some good innovation from Goody Farm. I don't know whether you've been to Goody Farm in Kira. It is a very big center, but they handle a whole value chain, but they are mainly dealing in white meat. You find youths there, over 600. Some are in production, some are in value addition, and others in transport. So you order for your fish, you want it fresh, someone will go and get it from the pond, prepare it for you, and then give someone with a motorbike, and they deliver to wherever you are. Some of these are really very impressive technologies that people have really adopted, and they are providing jobs. We find that, with due respect with our colleagues from the markets, they are somehow avoiding the usual conventional market system, but each offering a service on time. So I would think some of these, if not contacted, they would be one of those that we could look at. And then Dr. Patrick yesterday mentioned about the issue of food loss. You know, we are talking of food waste, but that food loss bit is not coming out very, very well, but it's a big issue. The losses, the post-harvest losses that we get from the farm to the point of sale equally lead to a lot of food losses in between. I would also appreciate if this was really brought up clearly. I do some personal businesses with the food. You get maize for milling, and you realize out of 1,000 kilos, you're losing close to 200 kilos in form of dust. They even bring cobs within the maize and stones. And you wonder, was this maize being sold for food? And what would happen if you don't clean it? It means people are going to eat soil within the portion. So the post-harvest handling and the losses that people go through are really a big issue. Someone just getting a tarpaulin to dry your products becomes difficult, that someone will put on the soil, and then removing the soil is another issue. Then storage, if we've had issues of aflatoxins, and then weevils and other things that may affect this during storage. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Any other comment, question, or reaction to the presentation? Yes, Thompson, Doctor behind.
Yeah, good morning, colleagues. Now, there is another project we have here. It is called Shift. I don't know its full name, but somebody here can tell us the full name. Here we are looking at establishing some food councils at national and sub-national levels. But already there is a provision for nutrition committees at district, and so that these nutritional committees will be advising on diet and so on. And this might minimize really the food waste. I wish Edson could go through and see how these nutritional committees, where they have been established and so on. But this Shift project will do an assessment on the food situation in the country and develop a national sustainable food systems action plan. Now we are lucky in the room, we have the person leading it from IIRR. Maybe she can give a brief on this nutrition committee, food councils, so that we link it with food waste and food loss on how this can be. Because once you have sustainable food systems, it already implies that you are trying to minimize all these losses and waste on how it works. So maybe you can have, we have Pamela here who is taking a lead on this, and then we see how it works. So maybe Pamela can give a brief on this. Sorry, Chair, I'm giving another person to speak.
No, it's okay, Doctor.
Going through your office.
We have to interlink this, so.
We could have that and then can get more information. Thank you.
Yes, Pamela. Use the microphone.
Yeah, so Dr. Mwesiji has mentioned, good morning everyone, my name is Pamela again from IIRR. Dr. Mwesiji has mentioned about the establishment of the food councils. So we want, through the SHIFT project, to establish regional food councils, and those will also be tied into the existing nutrition committees that already exist. But the focus for the food councils will be analyzing the food system as a whole, right from, as they say, from the whole entire food chain, that is some of which is not being looked at. When you look at the food systems approach, it looks even up to the levels of consumption. What are the consumption patterns? And so food waste has a lot and is linked a lot even to consumption, as we've already seen. So these food councils will spearhead this kind of analysis, bringing together various stakeholders, energy. It won't just be about Ministry of Agriculture. It will also have other ministries that are concerned, or other stakeholders that are concerned with the entire food systems. So this is still new. Right now we are in the process of doing a diagnostic study. And this diagnostic study, we're doing it together with MyIF as the lead ministry, and UNEP, of course. And once that is done, then that will also be shared with you also as stakeholders. But that's the purpose, basically. So we are still in the, I would say, in the very inception stages. So I can't comment so much about what's existing already, but those are the objectives of the project. So hopefully by mid next year we'll already have the councils established and functional. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. I think Edson, there's a lot of information we can actually share so that we're on the same page with what they're doing. Yes, thank you. Any other reaction, comment, and question?
Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a comment about the presentation. Thank you. It was very enlightening. We happened, as IIRR, working with NARO and SIP, work on that research of the cassava waxing, extension of the fresh cassava life, and that research was very good, and it showed actually with the technology of waxing, and the waxing technology could extend the fresh life of cassava from 3 days to even a month. And this was tested in some areas around cassava producing areas in the north, in Fort Portal, and then we even got investors. But the challenge with some of these technologies, and why that technology has not really taken off, is because we introduced technologies which are at a point where that technology only works if certain underlying conditions are in place. I'll give you the example of the cassava technology. Our role was actually to popularize this technology. But for you to wax that cassava, for that waxing technology to work, you have to uproot the whole cassava root without any breakage. And if there's any breakage, then it can't work. You can't wax it. So what that meant is you have to go back to the agronomic practices. How are the farmers harvesting that cassava? We have a tendency of the farmers had a tendency of simply, harvesting, and in the process it breaks, they don't care, But with that technology, it has to be whole. So we had to teach the farmers how to do ridging. It's a technology where you fallow deeply in the soil so that when the roots go down, and our cassava can really be huge. I mean, some of it would be so long. So you have to follow it deeply enough so that the roots have space to move. And when it's time for harvesting, you can harvest it without breaking it. But, and then even the pruning, the way the pruning was done had to be done differently, and at certain stages. So certain technologies work, but if we don't go back to the drawing board, for example, in this case, the example I'm giving you of that cassava waxing, going back to train on the agronomic practices which will make the technology work, it won't work. So these investors, some of them put up waxing plants to, because it was a good opportunity for them, But they got frustrated because most of the cassava that the farmers would bring, they couldn't actually wax it, So just to say that the technologies look good, but we need to evaluate further how functional they can be. And if we want to make them functional, we have to go and look at the entire chain of how this technology can be utilized and applied. Thank you.
Thank you. That is very informative. Yes, thank you, Pamela. Any other reaction, comment, or question? Yes.
Thank you very much. Arising out of what the colleague mentioned about the seeds, the stones, the things that we normally go through day in, day out, I was tickled when you mentioned about the 2015 grain policy and then the 2015-2020 inspectors. I'm wondering, are they still in existence? Does it address some of these issues of the stones and what that we normally go through? Or maybe it needs to be revisited? I'm just wondering as a native.
Thank you. Do you have any more? Any more questions? Any more comments? Comments are very welcome because people are doing a lot of work out there and sometimes we don't know what is happening. So when you share, we all learn. And if you have a question also, it's very welcome, please. Okay, let's have Edson respond to those for now.
I think I appreciate your comments, and I will attempt to respond to some of the questions. I think some of the questions I'm not in position to.
Good thing you have a big team also, so.
Like policies, policies where they're implemented or not in position to respond to. I also apologize for not going to look at the traditional ways of conserving food, but I think I will be happy to revisit our reviews and try to look at our indigenous knowledge. And I think the moment it can conserve resources, it's a green technology. So my sincere apologies for not considering it, but we are going to look into it. They talked of they gave of some business models where you can technology cannot do magic. Give it garbage, give you garbage. So we cannot do it in isolation. We have to work with all stakeholders along the value chain. So we need to see how our intervention could talk to interventions in the supply chain at food loss, because there is a clear distinction between food waste and food loss, and our priorities were on food waste. So we didn't go much into food loss since it's happening on the other part of the supply chain. But our emphasis should see how different strategies at different stages can communicate strategies in another stage. I think that's what I need to respond to. For stones, no, the policies are there, but it goes back to implementation, I think, and how we monitor our implementations. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Edson. So I give another opportunity for anyone who has a question or comment before we proceed. Yes, doctor.
They have a fireplace down where they cook from, and then they put the meat up, and then the meat is well preserved. So what Nathan was talking about is see how we can describe. We don't only have to go to .com technologies, because sometimes they don't work. People don't have the phones and so on. So if we can describe in detail those technologies, then they become a unique case study from Kampala as one of the cities. So maybe also you need to go and see. They would put in sorting, brine water. Brine, that is salty water. Put in the meat, put it there. Then you can eat it after 1 week and so on, 1 month and so on. So I would suggest that you go more deeper details on these indigenous technologies for preserving food. The idea of preserving food was to minimize food waste, for preserving the food not to go to waste. I'm not talking only about meat, but many others, so that we have how they dry the cassava, how they do all these things. I mean, they dry cassava and it can last for 1 year without even weevils attacking it. So if we have a chance, and thank you, Nathan, for bringing this up, we have, and those were green technologies, by the way. They were green long ago. No money put in, no this put in. They are real green technologies. So if you can emphasize on indigenous technologies and we describe how they work, I think it would help. Even our drinks, the tonto, how people would preserve it. It's a good way. I don't know whether I should give you a small lesson on this, like tonto, but that's not for today. But it's a food in Uganda, which is what some people don't like it because they call it mwenge, that they use feet. That's another story. You use the feet, but at the time of drinking, it has two advantages: that the fermentation continues even when it is in your stomach, because we don't stop it. It is the technology which is not stopped. It continues. I don't want to call them drunkard, but as the drunkard moves along, the fermentation is continuing, and he's getting more more drunk with time. So he's a moving brewery, and by the time he gets home, he rests and it has ketones and aldehydes and so on. That's for chemists. So please look at that. If indigenous technologies, include them in, so they are unique. How we do these things. I mean, you have Japan still looking the sake and so on. Why can't we leave our drinks that we are doing so reserved, taken by our people through the indigenous knowledge? And that will make a difference on how we are doing things. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Patrick. I believe all these comments are going to enrich the report, and in a way they're going to actually help us make it some of the technology specific to Uganda, like what is being talked about, the indigenous ways of conservation of food to avoid food waste and food loss. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break off for tea. But before we do that, we are going to get groups so that when we come back, we dive straight into the group discussions. Yesterday, we had a presentation that set the scene, and that was on the objectives and the findings of the study. We also had various groups presenting to us. We had Acadia Suits representing hotels on how they manage their food loss and food waste. We had Protein that actually presented to us. That was Phil, presented to us how actually they are using the food waste as a resource for production of animal feed and also production of good fertilizer. We had a presentation from Creek that are using waste to produce energy, and they gave us various technologies that they're using, biogas being the main one, that is in relation to what we're discussing here today. So the presentation we've had from Edison today was on green technologies and digital technologies to reduce food waste at consumer level. Now, in our groups that we're going to have, there will be 3 groups. Group 1 will be discussing food waste prevention technologies, strategies in food service sector. Group 2, we're looking at food waste prevention strategies in food retail sector. Then group 3, we'll be looking at food prevention strategies at household levels. So before we break off for breakfast, we are going to, for break tea, we're going to get groups. So we shall mention 1 to 3, and we keep doing the same so that you know your group. Group 1, we shall have group 2, and group 3. So we can start here, Simon.
Good afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Angela Nshimye, and I'm presenting for Group 1. We were to look at the proposed strategies for the hotels, restaurants, and catering services. So some of the strategies that we thought about was sensitization on the importance of food waste reduction. The second one was exercise demand focusing to avoid excess cooking. Then we thought about kitchen staff should understand the financial implication of food wastage. I think they should be educated on the losses they are making. Maybe this will motivate them to think about pay rise if they are able to save. Then we also thought we should analyze and control portion servings so that we don't have excess food served. We also thought about engaging staff on food reduction policies. I think management should involve the whole chain of everyone handling food to avoid wastage. Rewarding staff who deliver against targets on food waste management. If you have a manager who helps you save and you maybe don't buy in excess, they should be rewarded. While we were discussing, someone came up with an example of the previous ShopRite, where they would post the best member of staff for the week, for the month, and probably some of them are given rewards. I think that is good. It would motivate the industry on saving on wastage. Then there was an issue about allowing different type of plates at the serving station. I could be one of those people who may not want like a big portion, and can I be allowed to use a small plate? And those who want a sizable one can also be allowed to eat what they want. And then reduce overproduction by producing smaller quantities of items consistently left on the plate. It should be a management issue to ask themselves why this particular food is not eaten. Probably it could be a regional thing, or some areas prefer certain food types. I'm sure if you go in some parts of the country, you will not prepare certain types of food. So I think it would be nice so that you avoid wastage, and you know that people in this region, if your restaurant is up country, they do not enjoy matoke or something like that. They prefer posho. Then we thought about repurposing certain excess food. It can be used maybe for soups or something like that. It can be something that they can pick on. Then strategic communication to guests about food waste. I don't know how you'd feel if you found a notice in a restaurant that is talking about food wastage. Maybe can you serve yourself what you can? Think about the other person who needs that, the food that you will have left on your plate. Maybe share with your neighbor by not serving what you won't eat. Something like that. I don't know how you'd feel about it. We had an argument in that group. Other people thought it would be rude, but we thought we could come up with a nice way of communicating to the client and not to take away their appetite when they've just reached about serving what they cannot finish. Then We thought about having contractual obligations between the client and the suppliers about wastage in terms of service delivery. If you're having a service provider, probably it should be a notice. Let me give an example. So if let me give an example of an institution. NEMA is asking a catering service to bring food. It would be nice for me to put it in the contract. Do not bring excess food and all those other excess things that we don't want, and movement, how you carry it to my institution. So I think that would be nice, because when you inform one person in service industry, they also inform others. NEMA wants it like this. They don't want to see excess food remaining, so make sure you bring what is enough. So if the word goes around, I think that would save us all eventually. Adopting to mobile application technologies. We gave an example of Jumia. So if someone is to order for something, if all the restaurants, I think most of the restaurants, even in town, are on Jumia. So that would avoid wastage. So that means I would only prepare what is demanded. Then we had another point of other preservation methods, adopting to preservation methods, which includes having cold rooms. I think that would increase on the life of some food. Then there was also a point of management by walking around. I think that helps when you go to some hotels and you're seeing the managers are walking around trying to find out how is the service, how is the food. At least you can be able to get feedback about preferences of food. So in general, probably you change the style of cooking to avoid wastage, because some people will give you feedback about the taste of food, so that you at least gives you an answer to why everyone has left the chicken on the plate. Why? So I think that one would also work. So we also thought about creating an enabling environment for charity organizations to thrive. And then among other proposed strategies, there was a strategy of creating financial instruments. So we thought government should take the lead on this. Otherwise, we'd like to appreciate the people who came up with the report, all the hard work they put in the report. And we were able to go through the cross-cutting ones, and I think we didn't have a major issue on that. Thank you for listening in.
Thank you, Angela, for representing Group 1. Group 1, is that your position? Do you have any additions?
Tell them, am I lying?
Okay.
Let the chairman speak.
Going to make me a politician now. Thank you, Angela. I think she's done a good job. She's captured all our issues. On the cross-cutting issues, we tried to integrate them here, but we mainly found them okay. So I think that's a true position what we discussed, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have Group 2? Oh, let's clap for Group 1.
which is the smallest unit or administrative unit of a family. I think this thing is very timely because most of us, you know, our NDP3 is proposing a parish model to be one of the administrative units where most of the government programs are going to be implemented. So if we're also thinking in that way, I think we are in agreement with the NDP3. Group 3 had a strong lady and a strong man, and this is what we came up with. We said first, if we have to minimize food wastages at a household level, then budgeting. Every household should be able to carry out budgeting. Budgeting is a very big word, but what we are referring to is people should be able at a family level to know how much they consume. Let us break the silence. Let even the men, you can go there, you can discuss or go even to the kitchen, and you will establish how much food you will be able to consume in a day. And that's as far as budgeting is concerned. And also when it comes to purchasing some of the perishable goods, if you do carry out if you are done the budgeting, you will be able to know how much, for example, tomatoes can take you for a week. Or if you go deep down in our rural area where we do the purchase when time for cooking comes, if you know that maybe 2 tomatoes are enough to do a meal, you go and buy 2 tomatoes instead of buying maybe 10 tomatoes, which you may not be able to consume all. Then the second issue we looked at was the use of appropriate storage containers, especially for cooked food. I was advised that now in the market we have sipped polythene papers. That's the word I was advised. We have sipped polythene papers where when you cook your food, if there's any balance, you can transfer it in that sipped polythene paper and put in the fridge. It can even stay for 3 days when it's still intact. Or you can also these containers people are using for taking food to the hospital, so long as they are airtight, they can also preserve food, especially at the village level. And then the third point the third intervention we thought of was to promote modern and indigenous methods of preserving food. Modern is here, I'm referring to refrigeration. But a situation where people are unable to afford the refrigerators, we can also go back to our indigenous methods of preserving food. Like those people who might have visited Teso a long time ago, we used to have granaries. So if you harvested your granas, you could keep granas even for 2 years without getting spoiled. Problem only is because of the changes whereby we do no longer trust anybody. You cannot afford to leave your granas to stay outside when you are inside. But otherwise, it was a very good indigenous method of preserving foods. Dr. Red earlier hinted even the meat we can dry. And I think that will even help us health-wise instead of consuming all these fats. Then the another point, another intervention we looked at is the mindset change of the family. Let us not shy away at a household level. If we can agree, discuss with the family members, and adopt the self-service. Me, I do it at my place. You adopt the self-service and tell people that please serve what you can complete. Because there are some families whereby people are served. They just gauge you. If you're a strong man like Richard, maybe the hip is the place. Then at the end, Richard may not be able to complete that food. But if it was self-service, at least Richard would be able to get what he can eat and live. So if you start inculcating this culture from childhood, people will grow up knowing. And still on that, maybe we take at 9 o'clock. Because a problem always happens is that some of us, we take lunch at 4. Then I get at 8 o'clock, they call you for what? For supper. So you'll find that food is just wasted. Yeah? And after the mindset, we went to provision of affordable power sources to power the refrigeration or other shaded appliances. Here what we are meaning is that if we can move with this campaign or advocacy, by the time we succeed with our, now I'm interested in the parish model. By the time I'm interested in the parish model, and we have this argument that can people be provided with affordable energy, sources or power sources, like this is solar refrigerators, so that deep also in the villages, people are able to refrigerate their food. And then we also thought of that it is not practically, let us be honest, practically it's not possible to have zero food wastage. One time or the other, there may be some spillage, or people have got satisfied, or there'll be some food that's left. So we are advocating that can we encourage the people to have or to have backyard farming. If you are not a Muslim and if you have your one pig behind, whatever food remains, you can always give to your pig. By that, I think you would have not done wastage. Then we also talked of good housekeeping. You see, like in Uganda, there is a culture, people will call it the dry ratio, where you store beans, peas. Before even cooking, this thing can be wasted. Supposing these rodents get access to it. Sometimes a rodent has been poisoned from somewhere. You will find it has come and it has died in that grain of yours. The maggots have started coming out. Save only maybe Philip, who is making those maggots, will be able to eat that thing. But for an ordinary person, when the moment you see the maggots, that will be already wasted. You will pour it out. So I think housekeeping also plays a very big role in preventing food wastage at house level. Ladies and gentlemen, we were talking of household, and that's what we heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Group 3. That was Group 3. So now we are going to Group 2. Group 2 has gotten a better computer to connect.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Patience Nyawere, as a member of Group 2. At Group 2, our focus was at retail level. However, we did the whole assignment. We started with the policy, the other interventions at policy, finances, then the NGOs before we went down to our actual group work. So we have a few comments in regard to the proposed potential interventions for the different stakeholders. And in regard to the first bullet, where we have develop, facilitate, promote, or improve climate smart infrastructure, e.g. roads, electricity, and community or cooperative storage, and access to informal retailers. We felt the access to informal retailers was redundant, and then the aspect of cooperative stroke community storage should include the cold storage rooms. That's in regard to the first bullet. Then the other concern was regard to the third bullet of remove barriers to food redistribution via policies, e.g. liability limitations, tax breaks that make it easier for food suppliers to donate safe food but unsold food to charities or those in need. Our comment is we don't think these barriers really exist, and no initiatives have been made in regard to that, but rather we should develop guidelines or standards for regulating excess food to be distributed. Our other concern in regard to still this, under this section, supporting policies to standardize food date labeling practices to reduce confusion about product safety and quality and improve consumer understanding of the meaning of date labels. We really believe that these policies are already in place. UNBS has them, but rather this should be enforcement, not supporting policies, but rather enforcement, because we believe these policies already exist, so maybe they should be enforced. Then include food waste reduction lessons in school curricula should really be integrate rather than include. Yes, I think that was that for that section. Yes, then maybe one thing we needed to add on this is the training programs for the communities to sensitize them, especially when we look at bullet 2, where we have the brokers in food markets. If you sensitize the different groups and inform them not to use these brokers, I think you'd have an impact. So, under financiers, the first bullet, we feel this is not the role of the financiers to increase the number of charitable institutions funding. We seem to disagree to this. We don't really think this is the role of the financiers. Then the bullet 4, increase development cooperation between high income and low income countries targeting West. We feel this is more for the policy makers rather than the financial institutions. Yes, then under researchers, universities, research institutions, we feel that can be better captured to researchers and universities than the repetition, and then we feel narrow should be included because it's a key stakeholder. Then under bullet 1, research new and innovative technologies to preserve food quality and extend shelf life. I think it should go beyond the research of new and innovative technologies. These technologies should be affordable. Because, the technologies can be there, for example, as the freezers, but not everyone can afford. So it should clearly be highlighted that these should be affordable. Then bullet 2, where we have developed innovative products from perishable food commodities, such as fruits and vegetables to promote whole food utilization. We feel this should be developed innovative products from you should innovate products with a longer life, because the first one addresses technologies, but the second bullet should do more to innovative products with a longer shelf life. Then bullet 3, undertake research to fill data gaps and standardize reporting of food loss and waste data in order to better compare results, create benchmarks, and provide clearer direction for stakeholders. We feel this is a role for the policy at the policy level, not the research institutions, to come up with a standardized templates for reporting. It should really be at policy level. I think that's what we picked in regard to these interventions. So getting into our assignment, that was the proposed intervention to reduce food waste at retail stage. We looked at all these proposals, the interventions. The group found them satisfying. We just have a few comments. Oh, sorry, I think I've skipped something. Sorry to take you back. Yes, under NGOs, civil society, and sector association, we feel another intervention could be for these NGOs finding pathways for this extra food, then also lobbying and influencing the policies that favor that are geared towards food reduction. Those are two extra that we had under that category. Then coming back down to assignment, we had to look at food waste strategy, proposed interventions to reduce food waste at retail stage. And one of our concerns was this bullet of adjust promotions to avoid excess purchase of additional items, e.g. offer half off or mix and match deals rather than 2-for-1 offers. We feel this should be much specific to perishable products. Yes, then our other comment in regard to the retailers, but looking at the informal group, the bullet of where we have participating groups or associations of informal operators to access guidance and training in best practices in food handling and storage. It's not about participating, but rather have a way of formalizing these groups, because they can't just participate, but maybe we should be able to find a mechanism to formalize these groups so that they are able to participate. Yes, but other than that, we agreed, we're okay with what was provided, and we thank you, CPC. Yes, that's it for group 2. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Group 2, for the wonderful work done. I believe these are comments, these are additions that UCPC is going to pick and incorporate into the report. And according to the program, ladies and gentlemen, our assignment for today and the 2 days seems to be done. Let's clap for ourselves. And for that matter, I want to hand back to UCPC, and I want to invite Mr. Sebagala Silva. Oh, before, yes, Doctor. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Doctor, for that. We have made presentations. You've seen what other groups have also presented. And maybe you could have a suggestion, a comment, an addition to what they presented. This is the time for us to air them out. Yes, Doctor. Dr. Evelyn here has something to say.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, groups. I have an addition to Group 2. Yes, Group 2, thank you. And I suggest that we encourage household heads to participate in the dining activities, especially to study food preferences and in both qualities and quantities. I think, especially in urban areas, this is one is missing. People usually are busy, either they are on working activities somewhere for 5 days, they come back on weekend, then on weekend they go to watch Arsenal. They come back with big bags of sweet potatoes and, that tendency we have. at the end of the day, children get tired of eating the same meal, and sometimes they even trade it or throw it away. So I'm suggesting that we much as we can, we participate in the dining activities to observe those preferences, so that we can purchase accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Evelyn. Yes, we have Kasim.
Thank you. We were proposing that we are proposing in group 2 on top of what our secretary presented. Actually, she presented all that we agreed upon, but this is just for clarification. We are saying that for retailers informal, all that was presented below. First of all, the retailers informal should be mobilized and organized into associations. Then through those associations, they can do all the rest. For example, taking advantage of municipal access to clean water, the trainings, the what, all that. So instead of them working as individuals, they should be mobilized into formal associations. Then we had then under NGOs, you captured a lot of information on marketing, establishing markets. No, under banks financial. So we are saying that issues to do with finding markets could be more on the government side than the banks or the commercial. Then the other point, we had a point on somebody suggested that if government could come up with a system, an ICT system, that can instantly be like you read a product, you go on a product and you can read its expiry date based on when it was manufactured at the output process in the factory. Because we feel that there are people who have a tendency, like in the supermarket, they fear loss and they can change the expiry date in the supermarket. But now during surveillance, government like UNBS can have a system whereby they can just scan a product and know whether the expiry date was changed or it is still the same. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Kasim. Yes, let's pass the microphone to Edson.
Thank you, Engineer Kasim. I think I need to make clear the point on labels. It's true that in Uganda we have standards that require manufacturers to label. But the problem is on different ways on how these labels are put. You'll find a bread from Muntake says best before. You'll find milk from Jesha saying expiry date. So that's why the confusion comes in. That people may think if it's best before 14th, that on 14th you can throw her away. So the issue is on understanding. Maybe if you could come up with that intervention that could maybe make the public understand what those different labels mean, I hope the group here can assist us on coming up with a suitable action or intervention that can help us understand or come up with a standardized label instead of having different categories of labeling food products that end up confusing consumers and they end up throwing away food.
Thank you. Yes. Please proceed.
Now, when it comes to labeling on products, you know very well that all products, especially food, should be certified, right? Should have the quality mark. And the standard for certifying food or any product spells out clearly how we should be labeling. Now, I told the colleagues already that us being an economy that we are growing, some people, you find that we have products that are not certified, like bread, and somebody will do whatever they want, or they label the way they wish. But we have a standard that says that when you're labeling, the expiry date should be like this, and it is a standard, it is supposed to be uniform, but we are having this problem. And that's why, Mr. Edison, we proposed on that point that there should be enforcement of standards of labeling and packaging. Labeling standards, they should be enforced instead, so that we avoid that confusion you're saying. Instead of me waking up, I want to make cake, and I put it on the market, I put best before, because I saw a cake in Tanzania, they have written best before. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kasim. Let's pass the microphone. Yes.
On group 3, just something we wanted members to know. When we talked about mindset change as a way of food waste at household level, we also discovered that we need to empower, especially the family members. Take an example of a child. A child should feel free to tell you that, please don't add any more on my plate, and you respect other than just putting it there and it is thrown away. That is something among the mindset I wanted members to take note of.
Very good. So in our families, we have to be respectful of the opinions of the children. Don't force them to overeat, and they later on waste. Yes.
Yes, thank you. On the issue of labels and especially expiry dates, I would like to give another perspective from my home country, Germany. So rules there are very strict, and what happens is that the manufacturers often, to be on the safe side, they put the expiry date way before usually the food expires, actually. And then on the other hand, the people just overtrust the expiry date and don't trust their own senses anymore. Usually, if you use your eyes, your nose, and your taste, you can still see if a food is still edible or not. But many people, just if it says, oh, the expiry date is over, they throw it away, even though the food is still perfectly edible. That's also probably another perspective to consider.
That's interesting. So in Uganda, that would be dangerous if people get to know that the product, if the date they've put is not actually the actual one. They will, anyway, but it's a good control in an economy where, you know, people can actually follow the guidance. Yes. Any other reaction? Nathan, you're still bargaining about the same? Please share with us. Yes, Dr. Patrick. Let's pass the microphone. Nathan?
Johnson, your job is been taken away. Okay. This awareness, I don't know what the groups came up with. When people go to a hotel, for example, to eat and they are going to pay, they say, since we are going to pay, let us punish this hotel and pay as much as it is possible, and then leave it there. How do we handle such a situation of attitude? You put on as if it's we used to call it mountain in our days of the school. But it's in the mind that since I am going to pay, or I have already paid, let me put maximum, so that all my money is finished. And then they eat half of it, or even less. And these are things, so if you are the father and you have also your son, the son sees you piling, they also pile. So how would you tell the kids, don't put more, when you are actually putting most, if that word exists? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Patrick. Yes. Nathan, you're reacting to that. Where's the microphone? Thompson, who's disorganizing you?
Yeah, Dr. Patrick brings up something that we had a hot discussion about in group 1, because we were talking about hotels, and then there was something about communicating to customers not to waste food. And then the members were saying that if someone is going to pay for the food and you begin telling him that don't waste the food which he has paid for, it will look rude to them. They were asking, how do you package this kind of information? Because there are people who will not mind wasting for as long as they've paid. And they say, after I've paid it, so why should you ask me to not to waste? And so we still insisted that even these arrogant rich people, there should be some sense pumped into them in a gentle way. That please don't take more than what you can eat. So the question still was, how do you package it not to annoy the customer, to feel like you are arrogant or you are failing, or you want people to eat less yet they are paying for more, that kind of discussion. So now Doctor brings it to the home.
Thank you, Nathan, for emphasizing it. I see Mr. Chireta here has something to say about it. Since he works in a hotel, I'm sure he has good examples.
It is true. First and foremost, the customer is a king, and whatever he does is right. That's why we take time and we try to initiate our members in what we call courtesy. Courtesy is a polite way of telling someone. For example, if you come on a buffet, there is A to Z. I taught you this, I taught you that, I taught you that. Huh? Now, you'll find someone that gets salads. Salad, by its definition and the ingredients involved, if you put it with hot food, you are going to get it, the taste going bad. But if you tell a customer directly that, don't do that, he will tell you, that is how I want to eat it. So you must find a polite way of telling him, would you like to have this on this other plate? Or would you like me to bring it to you there? Because what normally happens, and this one I'm telling you, some operators take advantage of it. They will put desserts first there. What do I call desserts? Like sliced melon, pineapple, whatever. But you'll find a human being not in this room. He gets the watermelon, the pineapple, the matoke, the stews. By the time he goes down to eat, even the appetite has gone, and you'll say the food is bad, forgetting it is the mixture that he made which was not proper. And if you are not trained and you tell someone, he will tell you that after all, everything is going in my stomach. It's not your stomach. But the truth is, it is just the approach. So we try to train them in customer care. And when you see somebody is piling, I've seen even some corporate people somewhere. He gets a bowl of soup, he gets the bread roll, he throws it in the bowl of soup. He says, I'm going to eat everything. Now, if you are tempted and tell him what you are doing is wrong, he'll even call for the manager, you are being rude. So the best way to say is you'll enjoy your food better normally customers, they don't want you to show them that they don't know what they are doing, even when they don't know. So the best is to use the courteous approach. I don't want to dominate the floor.
Thank you. I think your experience in that area is very important. Yes, let's give the microphone to Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add on that, I think the approach may be two-way. The wastage, the customer who wants to take everything, but also you can have some options from the service provider. When you go to most of these Chinese hotel or fang fang, their plate is so small. You don't have the option of bulking very many things. You'll put what you're going to have, and then if you want, you'll go back for more. So if you also make the plate so big, you're giving these people the option, the luxury of putting what they can't take. The cups are small, of course, in the line you hear people saying, these cups are not fit for Africans, we need bigger cups. But it kind of self-regulates you. You put in what is enough, and then when you're done, you can go back for more. So we can have options which are on the demand side, the person getting the food, but also on the supply side, the service provider. They can have those packages or plates which are kind of prevalent, preventive in nature. They prevent waste in a way.
So you have two options. You have a small plate and a big plate. If you have a big appetite, use the big plate. You have a small appetite, use the small plate. But the Chinese restaurants you talked about, they don't allow you to go back for the second share. Yes, but the point is driven. I think it has gone home. Yes. Any other comment? Addition to the discussion? Question? Yes. Yes. I saw one of the groups make a presentation on that. Because they were saying include, for them they were saying no. It should be, I think specialists who talked about it. Instead of include into the curriculum, you said integrate, yes. Integrate it at all school levels. Yes, that's a good one. Thank you. Okay, I think we don't have any other comment, any other reaction. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, let's clap for ourselves for participating fully, effectively. And now I want to hand back to UCPC. Invite Mr. Sebagala. Please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I thought the boss should speak last. So I have a few points. One, let's make sure that we've all registered with on our attendance list. Secondly, the money has been already loaded on our cards, but some of us have not submitted in our hotel receipts. So let's make sure we bring all those receipts before we leave here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Richard, for taking us through these 2 days. We have come to the end of the validation workshop. We are very, very grateful for your inputs. It has been really a fruitful engagement. We are very sure that you have benefited from your contributions. We have captured your recommendations, your additions, and I'm sure as UCPC, through our task team leader, who I think has done a very good job, Mr. Edson Twinomjun, thank you very much, will be captured in the final reports. I want to take this opportunity to invite Dr. Patrick Mwesje to come and give closing remarks. And thereafter, we shall have our lunch, and the evening it will be at home. But we shall continue engaging you, because you have your emails. If there is any need for any clarification, or if you feel you have discovered something new that is useful for the report, please, our contact is available, we are going to take some time updating the report until we come up with the final version of the report that will be submitted to UNEP. Dr. Patrick Message.
Yeah, thank you, Silva. Thank you, Richard. Yes, we have come to the end of the beginning. Many of us don't take food waste seriously. We have enough. When you eat enough, then you go to run and run until you break down to burn the road that you have eaten. I hope all of us are not like this. So yesterday, I started that this one has 3 important messages. Green technologies, which should now include indigenous technologies, so they are greener than even PSD. Then consumer choice. We are all consumers. At least we all eat, which means we are consumers. Which would mean that one, you choose what you need to eat, but in a way that one of the options should not be to leave half the bread on. And then the third one is on the food waste and food losses. How can I join this movement, not the party, of ensuring that we minimize, we reduce food waste and food losses? This has been happening always through our lives, so we think it's normal to waste food. That if I am planting my maize, I know 5 bags will disappear. It's in your head like that. So if you see you calculate, you say I'm supposed to get 20 bags, but 5 will go somewhere. And then so this thinking I think is what we need to change, that we become change agents in the process. So that this validation workshop gives us an opportunity to be change agents. I know we look few, but one person can raise and see how this. It's difficult to put such, for example, in political programs, that when people are campaigning for their votes, they include food waste and tell it here and there. So it can happen, like for example, HIV, when the president put it on the political agenda, it's only the poor-hearted who contribute in the same way. So if we can have food waste also somebody talking about it. Our Minister of Agriculture is very young. He speaks passionately about some things. How can you make you realize that food waste is an issue? It contributes to food security, food system sustainability, and so on. So I believe we who have tested this can take it forward. It has come at the right time. When there was a UN summit in September, I don't know how many of us have seen the outcome document of this. Maybe we shall share it so can be part and parcel of this in the process. So as UNEP, we'd like to thank Uganda Kenya Production Center, who took on the task of ensuring that this is done. It has been a very short project indeed, because next month will more or less come to the end. That's why I say the end marks the beginning. Would be happy if, as a country, there can be a program on food waste, on food losses, on green technologies, on consumer choice, so that we can take this forward. This was just a small test, a small bit of it, and we can take it on as a program. These are through Ministry of Agriculture, through Uganda Kenya Production Center, Ministry of Finance, and so on. Is also then energy, so that we start realizing that it's more important to reduce food waste than growing more food. Edson yesterday told us that there is too much food. People don't have to worry what they will actually eat. But this is not only in your house or in your circle with the big people, but there are people who are very yearning for food. You have a district like Ushenyi, which has almost more America than some districts, but it has one of the highest malnutrition rates. How do you synchronize that?
more milk, more malnutrition. Richard, I don't know them. How do you synchronize that? The house survey just came out. The latest one shows the same. And this has been going on for a long time. Such a powerful district. Though the part of the milk and honey part, and then it has a lot of malnutrition. And part of what was malnutrition is because the food is wasted, and so on and so on. I can talk about some of these things for a long time without putting any because the speech limits you how far you can solve. So Kenya Production Center, thank you so much. You clap for them. They'll give us a final report by the end of next month so that temporarily this is closed but open. The new I have my colleagues I came with, Sylvia Mnohe, please stand. You receive a lot of emails from her. The emails are more powerful than how she looks. But don't worry about that. That will have also Nora. She's a lawyer by profession, but here we are very sick. So we would be happy to receive a proposal from Uganda, maybe as a partner, so that we can take it forward. We are good at doing this sometimes. We have Simon here, for example, from the Ministry of Finance. He's money. But these people no longer talk money because they are the ones handling all the projects in the country. The Minister of Finance signs on every project in the country. So they should open up their minds that everything is not about budget. But what does the budget do? Does it reduce food waste? Does it promote sustainable food system? Does it promote the sustainable consumption and production? Does it promote resource efficiency? But if we are there in Parliament, people talking about billions going, let them go if we are doing the right work and the right thing at the same time. See how best we can have. Kasmi, our guest of honor yesterday morning, the Minister of Trade, Industry, and Cooperative. The cooperatives understand food waste. Suppose, do they understand what we are talking about? When a person loads bags and bags of matoke, this one here. You know the way the matoke looks like, a bit that and so on, nobody washes, but you close your eyes, you know what is inside. After I have removed the green, the dirty one, I am good to go. Then we move on and see how it works. The Ministry of Agriculture is here, and so on. So we are all here gathered to ensure that this one works. Never looks after food waste, we want it to look after food system. In Ghana, they say saying that waste is wealth in transition. How can we make food waste wealth in transition? Philip gave us a story how he is making money, isn't it? Yeah. You make money, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Not yet, but,
No, don't worry. And you see, money has no different colors. Money is money. You can say, okay, black money, red money, and so on. But surely money is money. So if you can make it from waste, why not? But reducing at source becomes the better way of how to do things. So these market people, the leaders in the market, you can tell you how they can do things better so that the food is not wasted before it gets to the port. And when you are cooking in the port, you don't put more than what you are going to eat. If we have this culture of value chain, I think we can. So we are happy we are part of this. We are ready and willing to work with the country to see how we can promote this more, maybe with a bigger project where we can work together. Food systems is the new catchword now, and we need to be part of it. Let us not be left behind, because once we are left behind, it goes. So within this decade, up to 2030, we have an opportunity for SDGs, and if we can take advantage of that, you need to look at 2-3 SDGs, combine them together, and off we move. Edison still has a young brain, I think, can do that. So thank you so much for coming and attend this workshop. We hope this is not the end of the story, and we shall have a way on how we can continue to work together. We have a bigger project called Switch Africa Green, which has been doing a lot of things. Uganda is one of the pilot countries, and still is. Now there is what they call circular economy and sustainable public procurement, which Ministry of Finance is doing. These are opportunities we can start picking on so that we don't do same things, same way, same time. But do different things looking at emerging issues so that we are able to remain relevant. So you are 30 years, 40 years, 60 years, but you are still relevant because you are following the wind, or the wind is following you, which is better. Thank you so much. And enjoy your lunch. Safe drive, and here and there. We are leaving the country tomorrow for something else. Then I could also say this is not about green tech. There is this greening health infrastructure. Green health infrastructure is a project we are doing in Kenya and Ethiopia. And it has brought out a lot of issues. We had a workshop in Naivasha, Kenya, last week, 2 days like this. And then people started realizing what is greening health infrastructure. And everybody in the meeting was talking about COVID. And I said, okay, you can talk about COVID. Suppose it hadn't come. What would you be talking about? That when you are looking at green health infrastructure, you plan for all emerging issues. There will be another pandemic. Maybe not in our lifetime. But the way things are moving, there might be another one again. So if you have that, it's a very good opportunity for people to position themselves on this greening health infrastructure, because that's where all the money is going, so that we can see how we can work together and do this greening. I'm not saying green health infrastructure. I'm talking of greening health infrastructure. Not nurses putting on green uniform from white. No, that's not what we are talking about. But we ensure that the system, the health system, the green hospitals, the greening of hospitals becomes an opportunity. And our hospitals have got a lot of opportunities on how this can work. And this is something begging. It's a low-hanging fruit that we can pick up and go. When people say, that's not my field, what are you talking about? So long as you are going to hospital, you need a green one. Yes? That time when they were using a syringe from one person to another, that's not a green hospital. That's not a greening health infrastructure. But it doesn't matter whether you are a person who is an engineer, and then they put in the needle which has come from another person. That's when you will know I should be part of this system in the process. The second one is the food systems. Food systems. We are not talking about food only. We are talking about the system. So when Pamela and her group is doing an action plan, they just participate. If they don't call you, you say like Nigerians, I will come by force. And then we are able to move forward in the process. I lived in Nigeria for 2 years, that's why I'm saying this. So I will come by force. Then you'll be part of it. Let us not to write things the same way, wetland, fine. But let's see how we can work together. We are open, we are there, we can work together and see how best we can improve the country to go to another level, to go to another stage. And when you are part of it, I believe you can be a happy person. You don't say, he did it, she did it, and for you are out. Let us say we did it so that we are able to move forward. That's why all you here are from different parts. Few, but very effective. I was happy with the discussions. We're happy with the discussions. I'm sure we can go forward. We get a report, goes for the workshop, and the final one. You see, there is a summary report which has come. Nora, you can summarize that for all the 5 countries, 5 cities. There is a report which just came out. You can share it and you get more ideas so that we understand about food waste. UNEP also has produced the food waste index. I don't know whether Silva can explain it. No, I can't, but it is there. We can share it with these participants so that their horizon widens. You know, when I was in secondary school, somebody told me perspective. Said, what is perspective? I was a fine art person. That's why I entered fine art from that day. He took us outside the classroom and then said, perspective, something going until. So we don't do like that, but let us widen our horizon that we can be able to understand. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time when we are doing something a bit different.